Good evening.
Hey, Rod.
My name is Rod Richardson, and thank you for allowing me to speak here. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell you about what's going on. As you know, I've appeared here in front of you before, and you've all listened to me very respectfully with respect to issues on Hicks Island and public access that was denied there, and illegal signage. And I don't know how the trustees do everything, but whatever you did works, and the situation in Hicks is fixed, and there's new signage up, but it allows public access. So I think you're to be congratulated on that for however you did, whatever you did, and a lot of you folks have been particularly supportive and talked to me about, these public access issues. Jim's not here, and a lot of others you've talked to me, Rick, and also Dell. Dell and I share a particular bond as 9/11 Ground Zero volunteers, and I think we have a similar frame of mind about you just go in there and you fix a problem and you make sure that it gets done. And I like that about the trustees, that you get things done, and I hope you'll get things done about this problem that I'm about to tell you about. I want to talk to you about the threats to public ownership that are going on in Gardiner's Bay right now. There are fairy tales that are being told about the historical facts that just aren't true. And everything, by the way, I'm my lawyers have let me know that I'm taking a risk by coming here and talking to you at all. So I have to tell you that everything I'm going to say and have ever said and ever will say about Cartwright Island is my opinion, to insulate me somewhat. But this is, I also want to let you know that there are folks who are going to be coming here and talking, but there are other folks who couldn't come because they couldn't make it, and there are folks who couldn't come because they were worried about speaking out. Mm-hmm. So I want you to know that this is a difficult situation for a lot of people, and not everybody can address it. So on June 30th, this is when the incident took place. The start of the incident, and I'm not going to tell you the whole thing, but the start of the incident was that Goulet security forces were intimidating a group of families on Cartwright Island as I was paddling by. They were families with children, and they were threatening to call Marine Patrol, have these folks arrested merely for anchoring and playing on the foreshore, okay? Claiming that the Goulets own Cartwright Island because the Gardiners have a royal grant that gives them ownership of all of Gardiner's Island into the water as far as an ox can walk without getting its belly wet. Okay, this is the fairy tale that they're using to scare people off with threats of calling Marine Patrol. So let me tell you, you can ask me about the specifics of the incident if you wish to. It's been written up in the paper, so I don't want to waste my time going into that. But why am I here? For hundreds of years we've had public access to Cartwright Island. But since 2005, these intimidation and fairy tales by security forces has taken place. It used to be, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they would say it was a horse, okay? But now it's an ox. So I've repeatedly asked when I've run into these folks, show me your deed, show me the language that proves this. They never show me the deed. They can afford, going back to here, these two boats, employees on both boats, they've got a couple $100,000 worth of equipment there and investment in employees. They can't afford a piece of paper, to prove their claim, so that when people ask them to prove it, they can prove it, but they can't. So last year I witnessed, a tired lady paddleboarder who had stopped to rest on Cartwright being kicked off by security. And that's a safety risk. Somebody's tired, they need to rest on the foreshore. That's why public has the right to the foreshore. It's outrageous and it's not right. So it inspired me to research all the royal grants and everything I could find about Cartwright Island. And the conclusions are clear. If you look at the royal grants, if you look at everything, it proves that Cartwright is public. There's no ox, okay? We've been told about the dock. There's no ox, there's no horse. There's no ownership into the water. So on June 30th, it was not only my children, my own daughter was threatened, which is one of the reasons why I had to swing into action and say, hey, talk to me, not them. And so I tried to resolve this, by the way, privately with the Goulets, but they have insisted on public arrest. So I'm not willingly coming and making this a public issue. They've made this public by putting my name in the paper and pulling me in front of the judge. I'm going to defend myself every way I can by, if necessary, appealing to you to be defenders of the public trust. So, you know, in my view, you know, Marine Patrol enforcement on this spit of land out in the middle of Gardiner's Bay is a waste of public resources and is contrary to New York State enforcement procedures on shore access. If you look at the OGC guidance from New York State, it says if you're going to enforce, you know, you first tell the parties to try to work it out with themselves. And it also says that signs on the foreshore, let me just show you how ridiculous this is. I didn't include it in the PowerPoint, but I'll show you now. You know, just so you understand, you know, what we're talking about, the Gardiner's Island is a long spit, you know, a little bit less than a mile long in the middle of Gardiner's Bay, running from north to south. Cartwright, yes. Only on the extreme north and south end is it high enough to have a rack line. See, this is it. You can see in this photograph there are logs here, there's an oval shape. That's where all the birds are. The birds don't nest on the foreshore below the rack line because they would drown. Okay, folks, you can see that's the bird nesting area to the south. Most of the island is so low and thin and long that it's below the rack line. There is no rack line. That's regularly overwashed by the tides. The situation is so ridiculous out there that the signage that they have that says private land signs is standing in the middle of the water. Okay? It's in the middle of the water. Okay? They are claiming New York State bottomland is their own. That sign, by the way, claiming private land, is defined by the OGC guidance, which you can find on the website cartwrightislandpublicaccess.com, as a public nuisance that should be removed. It's a navigational hazard. Not only do they have that sign in the water, by the way, this is the middle of Cartwright Island. It is so low in the middle that at high tide it's underwater. This, the middle of the island, is where the incident took place. Okay? This is ridiculous. In the water, another sign. Another sign in the water. Another sign in the water.
Where did those signs come from, Rod?
I believe they were placed there by the Gardiner's family. They say Gardiner's Island Trust on them. I will have an image, a better image up on my website, but I'm sorry I don't in this presentation. But you know, these are at least half a dozen signs. There's the security boat. So I just want to show you how incredibly ridiculous this is. Number one. But let me go on. Moving right along. So what can the trustees do, and what should you do now? Let me just say, you all know this, but you're the oldest functioning trustees of the public trust, not only in East Hampton, but probably in the country. You know, regardless of if you own the beach, regardless, you still defend the rights of East Hampton public beach access in East Hampton. And I don't believe you own Cartwright Island. I don't believe you own the foreshore of Gardiner's Island. But you do represent the people of East Hampton. You are the trustees for the freeholders of East Hampton. And when their public access rights are being affected by people like this, you should care. And you should care because, you know, your beaches could be claimed by people like this. And not only that, these guys are claiming these rights under a Donegan patent similar to your own, but without the language that you have that gives you the authority over beaches. Let me show you what I mean. I'll get to that. But the militarization of Gardiner's Bay is outrageous behavior, okay? It's an insult and a threat to the freedom of the people of East Hampton. Marine Patrol enforcement, it's contrary to public law, access law. It's a waste of taxpayer money, and it's a threat to the rights of the people you represent. You know, the trustees should investigate the ownership claim, particularly with respect to the Donegan patent. They should defend public access to all East Hampton beaches. You have pledged to do so in a 2011 pledge. you should take up a resolution to end these abuses, and you should ask the DA and the court to dismiss these charges against me, against a citizen of East Hampton. Okay, so this is, you know, I remind you, you probably know about this, but maybe not everybody does, but you did sign a pledge, and it's tiny down here, but you said to support all legal means necessary to ensure the traditional rights and heritage of all members of the public to continue to access and use the beaches, not just trustee beaches, but the beaches, for all purposes against threats and efforts to privatize them. This is the biggest effort to privatize beaches in East Hampton, because this is not just Cartwright Island. This is the entire Gardiner's Island beaches. This is 16.5 miles of beaches. This is as if somebody were to privatize everything from East Hampton Main Beach to Ditch Plains. Okay, wrap your head around that. That's the amount of beach out there that is public foreshore that is being under this cloud of threat. Okay, let's go through this and take a look. So, so in any event, sorry, it doesn't display properly in PowerPoint, but the Cartwright public ownership is clear in the royal grants. There's no ox, no horse, no ownership into the water, no grants of Cartwright Island or Ram Island. If you look at the language, there's specific language that says, you know, that from Thomas Donegan, blah, 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 you know, we're going to, you know, it's specifically giving them the island called the Isle of Wight and Gardiner's Island. Okay, there's no mention of Ram Island, which existed at the time. We have charts to show that, right? It specifically says what they're going to give you.
What's the Isle of Wight?
The Isle of Wight was one of the original names of Gardiner's Island.
Oh,
It was called by the Indians, you know, it had an Indian name. It appears in some of the earlier royal grants. It's all up on Cartwright Island. Public
Did
access
you mention two islands just now, or no?
No,
Gardiner's
Okay.
Gardiner's
Island
Island,
is the same
no.
one.
It
Okay.
says formerly called the Isle of Wight, now Gardiner's Island.
Okay,
The original Gardiner came from the Isle of Wight in
Called that years
Okay.
ago, they called it.
Yeah, you know, it's had three names. There's an Indian named Masham. It's kind of like Mashamak, but it's something else.
Okay.
And Isle of Wight and Gardiner's Island. Three
Okay.
names. Cartwright's had two names. It was called Ram Island. Now it's called Cartwright Island. So, but it really lists everything that is being given, right? It says messages, tenement buildings, barns, outhouses, farms, orchards, gardens, pastures, meadows, marshes, swamps, woods, underwoods, trees, timbers, quarries, rivers, runs, rivulets, brooks, ponds, lakes, streams, creeks, harbors, breaks, fishing, fowling, hunting, hawking, mines, minerals, and that's it. Okay? Now, by contrast, if you look, that's Donegan's patent. If you look at your Donegan patent, it includes the word beaches. It doesn't give the gardeners the beaches. Okay? If you look at, you know, why the difference? I think, you see, here it is, the word beaches, right there. Okay? You've got the beaches, and that's the most important word in your patent, because it gives you the power over the beaches. They don't have the beaches, right? They don't have anything into the water. You'll not find any language there that gives them that. So, you know, why? Because you're democratically elected. So you're fit trustees of the public trust versus a feudal lord. That's, you know, Donegan knew what he was doing. And all my text is gone. Good Lord. Well, we'll try the other presentation. But basically, the points I was going to make here, these are the Nichols patent language. The Nichols patent language is much more limited than for you and for the gardeners. He expanded the language for both you and the gardeners. Donegan is the guy that made you trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of East Hampton. You weren't called that. This body wasn't called that. You were just a bunch of guys who had a grant. He also made the gardeners, you know, the lords of the manor. He made them feudal lords. So he knew what he was doing, and he expanded the language for both of you, but he expanded it in a very deliberate and different way. So it's worth looking at, but it's not complicated. It's not rocket science. It's all in English. And by the way, that the estate does not include the beaches was confirmed by the 1722 Chandler survey, which is the earliest survey we have of Gardiner's Island, by a surveyor, which specifically excludes the beaches from the total acreage. It says here, no beaches. It's 2,840 acres. Beaches are excluded, right? And the reason for, so that's 500 less acres than they currently think they have. But that's because the beaches are public. So in any event, so where are we going with this? Well, we've got, you know, the display is weird, but
Can I say something about that?
You need to come up to the podium, sir.
well, you know, you'll have a chance afterwards. So you can have a chance to chime in and maybe take some questions after if the trustees will let me. This is all new information to everybody, I think. But, you know, one of the things that's driving enforcement is a secret agreement between McGee and the Galays, which has never been published for the public to see. Now it will be up on the Cartwright Island publicaccess.com website. We only got a hold of this last week, okay? This purports to be a conservation easement and a bird sanctuary, but is it really? You know, it seems to seek to abolish public access rights. That seems to be the purpose. It's the basis, it's, you know, it's when the current enforcement regime started, so it seems that there's a connection. And, you know, the way this was put forward originally, it seems to us like the trustees should have been consulted on this, and the public should have had more time to review this. But I really can't imagine, is there anyone who wants to support an agreement drafted by McGinty? I'm sorry, McGinty. Did I say McGee? McGinty. In any event, you know, again, this purports to be a conservation easement, but the Natural Resources Department usually reviews these prior to their being signed and put into place. Larry Penny has told me that his department and himself were never allowed to review these agreements either before or after they were put into place. He also says that this, you know, he and his department and other scientists working for the town were denied access after 2007. He also says the department has not done, you know, any required annual report on Cartwright Island sanctuary in years. I don't think since 2007, but we haven't gotten all information. But certainly, I've been told by people at the Natural Resources Department that they haven't done this in years. So they're required under the agreement to actually have an annual report, and it doesn't appear that they've done it. So is the agreement a sham? So here are the basic obligations, you know, of the town under, you know, this agreement. You know, they're supposed to maintain the bird sanctuary according to the law. However, the law includes maintaining public access. So there's internal contradictions in this because down here it says that they shall provide no public access. So this is an internally contradictory agreement. So the town's responsible for issuing, you know, putting up signs and notices. I don't think this town has ever done that. I think the Gardiners have been the one putting up the notices there. So in any event, you'll be able to see all this stuff as you go through it. But I have a few observations for you about the McGinty agreement. They're mutually and internally contradictory on several points. You know, Cartwright does not seem to be included in the definition of the full estate. The definition of the full estate in the agreement goes on the tax map for Gardiner's Island. The tax map number for Cartwright is different, right? It doesn't appear in the conservation easement. They show you a picture of what the full estate is. It's only Gardiner's Island. And then you go to the bird sanctuary agreement and the picture gets bigger. And they show Cartwright. So the you know, the agreement seems to be deeply flawed. You know, the agreement seems to be intended to abolish public access but also says the town must follow the law, which requires public access. So it's contradictory. The public access language has loopholes that the town could use to fix the situation. If the town didn't want to do away with the conservation easement because it has some benefit to them, look at this. The language prevents the town from providing or granting public access. But nothing in the language prevents the town from allowing public access by doing nothing, right? Nothing requires the town to put up no access signs or prevents them from taking them down if they're contrary to the law. Nothing prevents the town from recognizing the law or a pre-existing access right under the law. They can't grant a new public access right, but they could recognize a pre-existing access right. So if you look at the flaws in this agreement, it shows the actions that the town might be able to take to fix it with a little guidance from you guys. So in any event, this will all be something for you to dig into, and I hope you guys will, I have put together a resolution which is humbly intended only as a guide for you for what to look into, what to examine, and what actions you might take or what you might say. And I'm sure it's not exactly what you're going to do, but I hope you will look at it and consider it, and maybe can change it as you see fit. But it's mainly meant for a guidance. I hope that you guys will establish a committee of the trustees to look into this and examine this closely, and within a month or so, be able to come up with a resolution on swift action, as swift as you have ever been able to do, because that's what I think the people of East Hampton want from you, is swift action on these things. I'm also, by the way, I don't know if, is there anyone here from CFAR besides myself? I'm a CFAR member, and I would point out that CFAR has issued a statement on this saying that they agree that Cartwright appears to be public land, and they want this to be investigated and public access to be restored.
Can we,
We don't take comments from,
can
only
we-
because it has to be on the record, so
can we
you'd
get
have to
this
come up.
information?
Right. And I'm also going to submit for you a number of emails from people that were not able to be here, but they support, what I'm doing. And there are any number of emails in the Star that you can see also in support of this. And I have to say, well, anyway, I won't complain, but maybe I will. The Star has threatened to spike some of these emails just because I don't know why. They're claiming that I wrote them, but I didn't. They don't seem to want to cover this fairly. So I hope that they start doing a better job. They've been, the Star has been sitting on information about this that I've shared with them for several months, and I urge them to do a story because they say that they're the paper of record in this town, and yet they haven't investigated this. And they are burying, the letters that people write in support of this in the back of their letter section. They write an editorial on the front of their, editorial section dismissing what I'm saying, and actually advocating in a legal policy of banning public access to Cartwright, which is illegal, let alone bad policy. And, and then when I give them a response to that, they don't want to publish it at all, not even in their letter section. Incredible.
Don't take it personally, Rod. That's common with that.
Yeah, I wonder what's going on with the Star. In any event, I hope they come to their senses. I actually love the paper. I think it's got a great historical tradition, and the research has been that I've been able to do using the Star has been great. So I hope they come to their senses. But in any event, do you have any questions for me?
Not at this time,
Yeah.
I don't.
Who arrested you? Was it a town, or was it a civil arrest by the owners of Gardiner Island?
My understanding is that the the head security guy for the Gardiners, who was the guy who was dismissed from the Coast Guard a few years ago, I forget what his name is, you know, was the fellow who signed the arrest, the complaint. You know, they didn't do a handcuff thing, you know, there were things that I didn't agree with about the way they did it, and yet they did allow me to come in and do a bench appearance where I just showed up and you know, they took my information, etc. So I never was dragged off in handcuffs or anything like that, and I'm very grateful that they did it that way. You know, but still, you know, they shouldn't be enforcing, the guidance from the, you know, I didn't really do a presentation on the Office of General Counsel guidance that says how these things should be enforced, but clearly they didn't use anything like the Office of General Counsel guidance, and the enforcement procedures that they're following bias this against public access rights, you know, which is completely wrong in the town of East Hampton. They should be following that guidance, which respects public access rights. And you'll find that guidance on the website.
Ryan, I just want to say thank you. This is a very important subject. We do have a very, very large agenda tonight, so I don't.
Yes, I know.
Short, but I think we would like to confer and get back with you, and, you know, I think there'll be further discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
But-
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Rod.
All right, Rod, Tim Taylor did send that letter to us and asked that we read it into records, so I'll do that now.
Oh, please do.
Okay.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it very much.
Sure. Thank you. To the clerk and board of the East Hampton Town Trustees, Citizens for Access Rights would once again like to state our group's support for beach access. As stated in a previous letter to this board, it is our group's belief that areas between low and high tide are accessible to the public based on the principles set forth by the New York State's Public Trust Doctrine. Based on the information our group has been able to review to date, we believe the area known as Cartwright Island falls into this category. The island itself is underwater for some of the year, and when it is not underwater, it appears that the island is owned by the state of New York. Our group is continuing to look into the history of Cartwright Island, but so far it seems the island is not a part of Gardiner's Island, and the foreshore of Cartwright Island should be accessible to the public. It is our understanding that a resident of East Hampton was recently arrested for trespass on the foreshore of Cartwright Island. As a result of the arrest, CFAR is hoping that some clarification on this issue in the public's favor and for trespassing charges to be dismissed. The board of CFAR will continue to research the deeds and history of the area and will follow the proceedings regarding the trespass charges and will keep our members informed. We urge the town and the trustees to look into this issue also and to stand up for public access should the facts support it. In the meantime, we wish everyone a happy and safe August on the beach. Sincerely, Tim Taylor, President, Citizens for Access Rights. Okay. Max Rosen?
I was there on the date of the incident. I was paddling around on a stand-up paddleboard. I didn't set foot on the island or on the beach or anything. I was merely paddling around, and I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on, but the security boat zipped up to me in a very belligerent way, and the guy started yelling at me. He was like, "You can't go on that private property." And I was like, "What do you want from me? I'm paddling around on a paddleboard." It was ridiculous. And then later on, and I was still paddling around later on when the larger military-style powerboat came up. And the guy kind of did the same thing. He's yelling at me and asking me questions, and it was ridiculous. I wasn't even on the island. That's all I have to say. It was intimidating and ridiculous.
Okay, thank you. Alexander Peters?
Good evening to this esteemed body. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you for all these years of protecting our public access to things I have enjoyed my entire life. I've been riding through the Stony Hill Woods and the trails of Amagansett and Springs for since 1960. And I know that you guys have been making that possible and keeping our public access through the woods a wonderful thing. But what I'm talking to you tonight about is our public access to the beaches. I've been canoeing and kayaking to Cartwright shoals for the better part of 50 years, and I want to continue to do that. And I know that the reason I'm able to do that is because of you guys and the Dongan patent. And I just really appreciate that ability, and I want every person in East Hampton to be able to continue to do that. And I want to thank you for making that possible. And I was really astonished to hear that my dear friend Rod Richardson was assailed by the Galette's Navy coming out to assault him for asserting his right to do something that we all publicly enjoy here. That's one of the wonderful things about living in our town, is that we can make use of these resources. And I just wanted to say, I really hope you're going to put the stop to this. Because these people don't own Cartwright Island. It's very clear. The Dongan patent makes it very clear. They own Gardiner's Island. They don't own Cartwright Island, Cartwright Shoals, whatever you want to call it. They don't own it. The state of New York does. And so it's public land that we can all access. And that should be the way it is. They have no right to harass citizens of our town who are making use of rights that we've had forever. Thank you very much. And I just want to throw in, I love your thing about Litterdale. Let me be part of your litter army anytime. Appreciate it, you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alex. Louis Mackle?
My name is Louis Mako. On the subject of Cartwright, to me, it's simply what is the law? And I think that the town, the trustees, everybody should find out what it is as quickly as possible, and then it's settled. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi, can you
My
repeat your
name's-
last name? Okay.
My name is Amelia Sperry, and I'm a resident of East Hampton. And I support public access to Cartwright Island. And I hope you're able to resolve this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Elizabeth Halliday, Amagansett. Of course, there are plenty of things that one could talk about tonight. I'm here also in support of public access for Cartwright Island. It's a rite of passage for a lot of people to visit. I don't think there's going to be any development. Everyone knows that in cases of emergency that you can land on the foreshore. The question is it not permissible because it's for recreation? I believe that the CFAR statement states it very clearly. Between the low tide and high water mark, residents, even people, visitors, can land a vessel or walk themselves along the beaches there. And I believe that criminal charges against someone doing that are inappropriate. I believe and hope that those charges would be dismissed. However, any vagary associated with this issue should be resolved and settled so that the public knows the rule. And I should hope that if it turns out that Cartwright Island is included, that there be some kind of compromise for a section of Cartwright designated for recreation. We'd want to keep the bird sanctuary. I think everyone here cares about wildlife, but everyone is here because of the lifestyle. And to deny access would set a bad precedent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.